Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Call of Duty the board game, which is brought to you by Arcane Wonders. It's for 2 players, ages 17 and up, and games usually run about 45 to 90 minutes. Call of Duty the board game brings the acclaimed Call of Duty experience to your tabletop, immersing you, the players, in intense competitive combat. Play on authentic Call of Duty maps, and choose from operators like Ghost Riley or Captain Price. Select your favorite weapons and items, build a custom combat deck with your signature tactics, then jump into the action. Each round of the game, you will make tough choices as you secretly and simultaneously plan out your actions. Will you boldly engage enemy head-on, or perhaps you can outmaneuver and sneak up on them? Maybe they're hiding in that building. Throw a grenade in the window and find out. Or take a risk and run for the flag to seize it. After planning, the action unfolds with explosive surprises. Combat is quick and deadly with intense tactical choices. Will you unload your magazine recklessly? Maybe you prefer to take the time to aim carefully. Or will you dodge and outmaneuver your foe? If you get eliminated, simply respawn immediately back into the action. And there are so many ways you can play. You can combine core sets for unprecedented 4-player experience, expansions and new maps, operators, weapons, game modes, and so much more. So first and foremost, I have to say that I have been a longtime fan of the Call of Duty video games, and the fact that they put this into a board game makes me super excited. And I can tell you right now, this truly does capture a lot of the same experiences, the same fun, excitement, and just the fact that if you play the basic game, you can jump into this and get rolling, literally rolling dice, right away and really have that experience, a really fun experience just in the basic game itself. But as you learn that, then you can move to the more advanced and have so many more options and things you can do. Everything I'm going to be showing you here is definitely prototype, so keep that in mind. I'm going to give you the basics, and then we'll take a brief look at some of the advanced features in the advanced game. But to gear up, you're going to get your operative, your miniature that matches, and your operative card, along with your weapon card, are going to have a basic side and an advanced side. And we'll take a look at what some of these things mean in a minute. And you also have a tactical track or meter that you're going to have above your playboard, and then a series of cards. Again, cards are going to be dictated by playing the basic game versus the advanced game. So those are going to be your loadout. You've got cubes and your color, and then what's really cool is you have these miniature versions of the board where you'll be planning out all your movements. Now you're going to be doing this behind a screen. Here we just have it open so I can show you a little clearer. And you have tokens that you're going to be placing here as you plan out each of your actions for that particular round. Now, one of my favorite aspects of the game is the dice chucking. It is so much fun, but you have some choices with these dice. So first, we have 3 different types. We've got blue dice, which are for aiming, which can move you up and down your aim track, which is located on your weapons board. Now you have green dice for your agility, and this is kind of a protection, a shield. So it will move your opponent down the opposite way on their aim track, and we'll take a closer look at that in a minute. And then you have aggressive dice, which are just straight up damage that you're going to be applying if you are successful and you don't end up with a critical miss. So you got to be mindful of that. Don't just go all in with aggressive dice. But how many of these dice do you get? Well, your weapon will dictate your loadout, basically, how many of each type. But on your turn, you're only going to get to roll 7 of these when you enter into combat. Now let's take a look at the main map. This is where all the action will be carried out throughout the course of the game. And you'll see there's lines everywhere. They're colored lines. This is a way to give you a quick at a glance for line of sight. If you're on a node and your opponent's on an opposite node that's on the same colored line, you're in line of sight. And there's differences for being 1 node away and 2 nodes away as you engage in battle and so forth. But there are also arrows and directions. You can only move in one way on some of the areas of the map. And if you have the high ground, you might get a bonus. There's a plus symbol showing what you move up on your tactics track. And there's even minuses. Maybe you're on a ladder when you engage in combat, so you're going to get deducted for that. So all kinds of neat, really quick at a glance aspects of the map. And there's even cover that you can use and get behind when you engage in those combat situations. At the start of every round is the planning phase, and this is where you're going to be making choices behind your player screen on your mini-map, placing those action tokens from node to node as you move around the map. And orientation is very important. Wherever you're facing is the top of the action token. So you can move forward into a space and then flip around into the next node facing the opposite direction or to the left or right, whatever you need to do, wherever you think your opponent might be, so you are on target when you do engage in battle, because that's going to be a key thing. Now, you do have one additional token when you plan things out in the basic game. It is a sprint, allowing you basically to move 2 nodes, giving you a fast movement for sure. And in the advanced game, there'll be additional tokens you'll be able to tap into. Then you have your 2 pawns out on the board as well, just to represent where they are, so you can kind of plan around that as you move across the board and do various things. So again, keeping all the things in mind, like taking the high ground, not landing on a ladder where you're going to be perhaps vulnerable, leaving yourself open to an opponent, getting behind cover. All those things are going to be crucial to where you place. Now, one other thing, in this particular game, there was a spot on the board with a flag. You're going to try to capture and hold it from round to round so you get extra points. There is a score marker, obviously, for when you make kills or you hold the flag. In this particular game, in this particular map, there'll be all kinds of other types of game modes, just straight up deathmatch, capture the flag, and so many others. So that's a really nice aspect, another way to get points from round to round. Once both players have finished their planning, then it's time to move to the action phase. This is the heat, this is where things get real. And you're going to be following what you planned out on your mini map. And you'll be doing this simultaneously, action 1, action 2, 3, and then 4. So the key thing here though is that every time you perform an action, a movement action, or what you planned on your map, you'll check for line of sight. Again, looking at the colored lines, are you 1 or 2 nodes away? If you are, you'll engage in combat. But if that never happens during the action phase, then you just move to the end of that phase, and that's where your operatives end up. And you'll mark that on your mini maps as well, so you can start planning for that next round. But at the end of the round, if anyone has the flag, if they've captured it, you're going to get 1 point for that. If anyone has been injured, then they will heal 1 wound. So there are some various things for cleanup at the end of the round as well. But that's the basics of what you're doing around the board and how you move. But let's take a look at combat. So once the 2 operatives enter into a position where they're in line of sight, then combat begins, regardless of where you are in your movements that you've planned out. Everything stops and you enter into combat. Now, the first thing you're doing is taking a look at your tactic meter. You put your cube on the 0 position. You look at your weapon. Are you 1 or 2 nodes away? And that will dictate which of the aiming tracks that you use at the bottom of your board. You'll place your cube at the starting position there as well. First thing you're checking is if you're on target. Are you facing your opponent? If you are, you're gonna move up 2 spots on your tactic track. Now, there are ways to get minuses on this track as well. If you have wounds, you'll have to move the opposite direction. Sprinting, if you're in a minus spot on the board, lots of different things can play into where you're gonna be moving along that track. You got to be mindful of that, especially when you're moving around the board and so forth. But also Shepard here, he is behind cover. So he's going to get a shield icon of 2 and place it on his tactic track for later in this particular combat phase. Next, you'll choose a combat card. Now, a lot of these cards have bonuses on them. They're going to have things like an extra shield or give you a plus on the tactics track. But you'll make a choice and lay it face down, and then you'll grab your dice. You get 7 out of your total pool, so choose wisely. Don't just be all reckless about it. Now, you're going to choose these dice, and then you both will reveal your card and roll your dice. And the first thing you're looking for on these dice rolls is the green dice, the agility dice, first strike. Whoever has the most lightning bolts gets that first strike and moves up 1 on their tactics track. Next, you're going to calculate your aim. Based on the total of your blue aim dice, you'll add that to your aim track. Now, whatever your opponent rolled in green dice, that will get reduced on the aim track. And if they had tactic cards or if they were behind cover, that will reduce that as well. Now, the thing to be mindful of is if your aim track ever moves into the black, that is a critical miss. Then finally, we calculate total firepower to see who won this particular fight. First thing you're looking at is your combat card. What number value is there based on where you are on your aim track. You'll match the colors up, and that's the number value you get. Plus, whatever you rolled on your red dice, if you did roll any, you'll get that number, as well as add in where you are on your tactics track. And that will give you your total for what you did in firepower. Now, whoever is the most wins the battle. The other player is eliminated, but if the other player was within 5 of the total, then the winner would receive wounds. You get 2 wounds from that. Potentially, if you have 3+ wounds, that can eliminate you as well. Now, if there's a tie, whoever at first strike would win that fight. However, a tie can end in strictly both players being eliminated, and you'll calculate points at the end. Whoever won that battle will get a victory point. And the eliminated player this round will have to respawn when they come back to the planning phase. And two things to keep in mind: you cannot respawn within line of sight of the other player, and you cannot respawn within line of sight of the flag objective. So it is an interesting back and forth for sure, and I love how the points get calculated between the tactics track and how much damage you're going to be doing using aim and so forth. Really well done, and it's quick to play. And in the basic version of the game, you really can just jump in and get rolling right away. So let's take a brief look at some of the advanced features. Things that I really like the operative. You flip over your board and you have a special ability now. And that gives you all kinds of different things based on the operative. But like for Ghost, he's gonna get a +1 on his tactics track if your opponent is facing away from you when you engage in combat. Also, you have a kill streak at the bottom. I love this aspect. For every kill you get, not only do you get victory points, but you can move up this track and eventually you can spend those points to do things like airstrikes out on the board. And there's additional combat cards. Each of those advanced combat cards can have a special ability at the bottom, all kinds of different things here that can help you in battle for sure. Then also your weapons flip over to the advanced side as well. And you'll see on here some icons that you have a reload, which shows how many cards you have in hand. And you'll have to use this reload icon, or token I should say, in your action tokens so you can draw more cards up for your next turn, because you will run out of cards in this advanced mode and so forth. And it'll show what your hand limit is. And then also you get additional sprint tokens for this particular round. Now there's also items and all kinds of things like grenades that you can attach. And what's neat is that a lot of the different advanced features and items that you get are tokens that will attach to your actions as you move across the map. Maybe you'll toss a grenade in, or a landmine, which can set off and damage units, outside of being in straight up combat. Another advanced feature worth mentioning, really adding some depth to the game, is more enemies, recruits for your side. You'll be planning out their movements on your mini board, as well as activating them in the action phase, checking for line of sight every time they move and so forth. They have their own stats on their cards, and you'll be able to quickly engage with them and so forth. Another advanced token you might use is the ADS, aim down your sight. You're going to stop your movement, and you're just going to get bonuses in the aiming track when you use this. And again, this is a token that you will place on top of one of your action tokens at a certain point in your planning phase. And that kill streak we talked about, that also has a token that you'll place on one of your action tokens when you get ready to use it, or spend your points in order to bring in that airstrike or whatever you're doing with it. So lots of options in the advanced game. It really brings new depth to it, but in the end, it's still all about getting the most kills. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, I've been a longtime fan of the video game, and they did a really nice job conveying that feel in the board game. And it really comes down to some really fun planning in the mini board versus the main board, but I love the dice chucking in this game. You have so many choices. Which dice do I use for this particular engagement? And in the advanced game, which items do I use? How do I best engage? And how do I pick the right combat card? Just a lot of fun choices here, and just the action is high and impactful. And the fact that you can jump in quickly as a new player is really well done. Just a glance at the board to understand what's going on, line of sight and so forth, and how you do the simultaneous actions as you move around the board, and then, oh, look, we are engaged. Let's go into combat. Lots of fun for sure. I love the speed of the game. It really does give that impactful run and gun feel. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.